Hello, YouTube. Good to see you back. Back at it was the next installment of What If Naruto was in Ruby and Blake was Sasuke's reincarnation. Or if you want, just a simple title, WildFlowers. I'll be focusing on updating this story on all sites including fanfiction.net and Archive of Our Own. It's even on Quetov. So if you want to follow along or read on ahead, click on the links below in the description. Now, before we start, I just want to thank all of you who have been following along. Your support keeps me forging ahead, so thank you. And if you want to help me out, why not subscribe and leave a comment afterwards? That'll make my day. Now, on to the story. So satisfying, Naruto gave a contented sigh. 3 bowls perched on top of one another, massive grin stretching from ear to ear, patting his stomach. I could use another, but I think I should stop. Blake mewled on the other side of the table, wiping a few pieces of rice from her lips. Much as I would like to continue to eat, I think it would be in bad taste. He paid for a dinner and did help us out, so he wasn't as bad as I thought. I only questioned his motives when we were faced with danger. Eh? Naruto raised an eyebrow and puckered his lips, tilting his head at Blake. Nah, that's what he did was pretty normal. My senseis did that all the time. He was only making sure we could handle ourselves and would have intervened if he didn't think so. That's not good enough, Blake snapped, her eyes glistening before she let out a small click of disgust. Whatever you think and say, I didn't feel safe. And that does not excuse that kind of behavior. That was an alpha Grimm, one who has lived for a long time and has gotten stronger because of it. And that was the first time I've actively hunted Grimm like that. I wasn't even sure of myself. I didn't know what to expect, and I apologize. Naruto could see that Blake was resentful about what had happened and that something was troubling her. Guess there's a lot I still have to learn, and I didn't consider that. From now on, I'll give you my word that I'll do my best not to leave you in situations when you are vulnerable. If you feel uncomfortable with something, let me know. Might not always get it, but that's just the way it is sometimes. Gotta listen to one another if we're gonna figure things out and work together. Blake's face fell, taken aback by how quickly Naruto blamed himself, even when he wasn't entirely at fault. Yes, they needed lead, and they could have done something more reasonable, but to hear him say those words, after hearing a little bit about him and some of what he would do, what that meant. You would give your word? Just so I feel more secure? Blake tilted her head, and a peculiar expression overtook her features as her ears sagged. I didn't ask for that. That's too much. I don't want to be a bother. Huh, what bother? Naruto beamed before shaking his head. If you weren't ready for something, you aren't ready. Simple as that. Sometimes things get too much, even when you're skilled enough, and you get into your head. Everything just weighs down on you. I get that. Happens to me more than I care to admit. I fight through it all the time, but I know others aren't like me and get bogged down and have harder times, so I understand. Her eyes shot wide, and Blake's body went rigid. It was so odd hearing those words. After so long of being put into intense situations, one after another, as it was demanded of her, for the betterment of the White Fang, of Faunus rights, to hear someone say they struggled with similar issues, whether they were or not, was comforting. Blake's cheeks flushed as she looked down and away, shaking her head. She couldn't find the right words. Didn't know how to even respond. How could she say that to that? What could she say to that? He was still a stranger to her. even though she was starting to get to know him a little better. Well, an acquaintance was a better term, she supposed. He might call her a friend was his terminology, but she wasn't sure she could do the same. So how could she respond to this? She really shouldn't be trusting him at all. Blake barely met him a few days ago on death's door, and now they were partnering together mostly out of necessity. She knew she could get by on her own. It's getting pretty late. We should probably head out. Got a decent amount of lean. Maybe we can stay somewhere instead of an abandoned warehouse tonight. Could go for a shower right about now, Naruto mentioned, interrupting her thoughts and stretching his arms out, grimacing at the stump of his right arm before muttering to himself, "Still feel it too. Like it's not even gone at times." Blake's face sank, and her ears depressed hearing his murmur after agreeing with his earlier statement. She was about ready to take up an argument after his perverted actions didn't make her feel all too supportive of such an idea. But they were dashed as she glanced at his right arm, and after seeing what little she had seen of him in action, what could have caused him to lose his arm, to be left in such a state when she found him in? What he had shown today wasn't just skill. It was extraordinary power that didn't make sense. "Naruto," Blake solemnly spoke, unable to look away from the table as she had before, gaining the courage, and finally looking up and into his eyes as she asked the question. "It's okay if you don't want to answer this. I'll understand given the condition you were in when I found you. It's just, after what I've seen, it's clear you aren't at your best and you have been holding back. What could have left you like that? Taking out an Alpha Grim the way you did is unimaginable. I've never seen or heard of anyone move like that before. It was just a simple jump. Maybe a semblance, but then you used another ability in the process. And then you have those orbs and..." Okay, I'm really beginning to think we have a fundamentally different understanding of what chakra is. Naruto chuckled softly under his breath. What? What is chakra? Is that another word for aura? Blake tilted her head, her ears perking in confusion, gazing at Naruto, who, for the first time, had the same stupefied feeling Blake had been experiencing the entire time. "Is that what you meant by bloodline limit earlier? Does your home have different words for semblance? But you clearly do have one, as I've seen so many different things that don't add up." Naruto choked on his spit. He then looked up upon Blake with wide eyes, unsure how to process any of this. Like she had been unable to process how he'd been throwing things at her. And as his brain cells fried from overload, he saw a big button in his head. A big red shiny button labeled eject. He pressed the button and got up and started walking for the exit without a word. "Don't you leave me in here," Blake stated, running after him. "Hey, what's with the silent treatment? Cat got your tongue, huh?" Nighttime made this city feel like a different place. It wasn't a bustling place during the day, at least to what he believed it should have been. As Naruto saw it, it would have been more populated than it looked, but it was a ghost town at night. Konoha was more active, and it was a smaller place than this city. He had to wonder what was wrong and why he felt there were fewer people in this place than he swore there should have been. Not to mention, he could feel the shadows moving at night. That wasn't a good thing. Naruto heard the crime boss was giving Huntsman fits here. But to think it might be this bad, he was thinking of returning to that board and looking up a few more criminal names. Naruto might have to go on a spree of hitting the town and nabbing a few big-name crooks. Rewards might be nice and all, sure, but if not many people were coming out of their homes at night, something was off. Or again, was there more to this than he realized? Did this place have different cultures or something? It was all too confusing. Just like the stupid gadget in his hand. He had no idea how it functioned. Stupid thing. Map! Where is the map? Naruto grumbled as he could barely interface with the touchscreen feature, having to be shown several times how that worked. If we don't find this place... Which is why I've been leading us there, Blake humorously grinned, hiding her scroll behind her as her eyes glinted at the scene before her, pointing over at the building that looked like a budget hotel. I believe that is what we're looking for. I've seen better, but it will do just for fine. Just no, nothing like this morning. I can't promise that. Naruto held up his hands defensively, wincing seeing the dagger-like gaze being sent his way. Look, let's just say it was been part of my upbringing, and I have had more than a healthy interest in female anatomy for a long time, ever since I found a certain orange book when I was little, and now I own the entire set thanks to my master, who wrote the series and is world-renowned super pervert. Not to mention my sensei is an avid reader of the said smut, and I've just been around perverts all my life. Hissing deep within her throat, repressing the urge to play into his game. Blake knew that's what she was aiming for, so she restrained herself. Instead, she calmed her nerves, crossed her arms over her chest, and turned her head from him. Being a writer or a reader of smut doesn't make you a pervert. Doing what you did this morning does. Don't get that twisted. That won't fly in the room and I'll kick you out if it happens, understand? All good on that front. Can't operate this thing to do even that, even if I wanted to. Naruto grinned and made Blake stare at him flatly. Not sure if she wanted him in the room with her or not. Besides, who said reading or writing made them perverts? No, my master was a self-proclaimed super pervert who peeped on women and taught them how to do it and taught me how to do it better. I suppose, and since I openly read those books in public and even mocked us while training, even read it while mocking us while we trained, sort of funny now I think about it. You were taught how to peep on women? Blake bristled, her ears spiking upwards and her hair pointing on end. Wait, better. You were doing it before? You vile cretin. How dare you think that's acceptable? That's something a 12-year-old would do. I was 12. Naruto shrank from the shrieking cat girl, petrified of her and wishing she would just hit him, as it would make him feel better about the moment. I was younger when I started. I think 10, maybe? I don't know. I didn't think it was that odd when I found the book and wanted to learn more about women. And it had a scene like that, so I thought it was okay. Found out it wasn't, but that never stopped me. Probably because I'm stubborn, but don't know when to quit. Blake's demeanor dramatically softened, her eyes wide, her mouth agape, before bringing up her hand and holding it to her chest. You were that young and you were exposed to that kind of material without it being explained? Why did no one tell you? I was an orphan. No one really cared about me but the leader of the village. He probably didn't want to explain what it was to me after I stole it from him. I think old man Sarutobi was really embarrassed to admit to others that I learned about it because of him. And because he left it on the desk. and I just so happened to take it. Naruto slowly stood back to full height, recognizing he was standing at the same size of her, even if she did have some decent-sized heels on her boots. And with her ears, she was technically taller than him, even with spikes in his hair. Oh, I didn't know that you were... Blake looked further depressed, dismayed and astonished, before looking away. Sorry, I shouldn't have assumed. Don't apologize, it's not something I told you. How could you have known, so no worries. Naruto flashed a grin. But I guess I probably shouldn't be doing either, so I'll do my best not to indulge in my old ways. Even if they did almost save the world. What? Blake jumped and looked at Naruto with wide eyes. I'll tell you another time about that. Naruto's grin widened, amused by Blake's fuming, knowing she wanted to know more. But as he ignored her, focusing on getting a room for the night, Blake smoldered at him. That was a story she needed to know. Blake hadn't heard anything like that would have put Remnant in peril. She thought she would have, but being disconnected from the rest of society while she was with Adam and his faction of the White Fang, she didn't get to know all that much about the world currently. It would also make sense why she found him in that state, and he was certainly strong enough to protect the world from something dramatic. Maybe like a meteor? He had weird abilities that didn't make any sense, as his power didn't function like aura in the slightest. She needed to know the answer to that question. Something inside of her was screaming at her to get the answer, wanting it, desiring it, as if it were the key to explaining everything. Wait, get back here and explain, Blake demanded as she followed behind Naruto. As soon as he paid for the room for the night. So, you read smut? Naruto deflected, a twinkle in his eye as he looked back at Blake. What? Blake stopped in her tracks. Her eyes widened peril as her face went scarlet. Naruto turned and faced her before she balked at him. What gave you that impression? No. That sounds suspicious. Naruto kept a toothy grin before shrugging his shoulders and turning away. I was just curious after hearing how you defended those who read and write smut earlier, saying they weren't perverts. Sounds pretty defensive if you ask me. Well, whatever. I might have some books if you're interested. Naruto waved as he headed back towards the hotel, ignoring the fuming and flushed Blake as she twitched behind him. Was he messing with her again? Trying to break her and have Blake stoop to his level? It was so frustrating. Or was this a genuine offer? Was he just being friendly and offering her a book to read? A naughty one, but a book nonetheless. He was so frustrating. She couldn't get a read on him. One minute they could have had a heart-to-heart, and the next he was cracking wise and taunting her, or doing something impossible, or didn't know anything, What was this enigma known as Uzumaki Naruto? Why was he so damn unpredictable? And why was she so damn curious? What was this feeling that kept pulling her towards him? And why did his scent seem so familiar, yet she couldn't recognize it? Told you I wouldn't peep. Naruto held up his hands as Blake exited the bathroom, then scowled as muttered under his breath as he dropped his right arm and glared at it. Blake's ears twitched as she could hear his murmuring. She could only sigh at the scene. Putting on a smile, Blake closed her eyes and nodded, placing her hand on her hip. You earned a point this time around. Still got some work to do. Whoop whoop! I'm at 1, so that's a start, Naruto chuckled as he scratched his head. Now, how much for a passing grade? I'm pretty bad at tests. Like, notoriously bad. Don't think I've ever passed one that wasn't a physical grade. Snickering and rolling her eyes, Blake set her vest and leggings onto the bed. While she felt somewhat exposed, she could tell he wasn't leering at her and joking around as he had been. So while she was slightly uncomfortable staying in a room with a boy she hardly knew, he seemed tolerable enough. It could certainly be worse. Didn't hurt from what she had seen. Naruto was built fairly well, with solid abs, even if he was a little short for a guy his age. Adam wasn't much taller either. Now that Blake thought about it, her perception of size was sort of skewed because of her father. He was a mountain of a man. Sighing and shaking her head, Blake hopped onto her bed and took a seat. Sorry for taking long. Water might take a little while to warm back up, but it felt so good. Hearing the purr in her voice, Naruto held back a chortle by biting his lip. I can see that. Must have been perfect. Instead, it came through his voice and earned him a death stare, and then Naruto let it out, causing Blake to scoff at him and look up at the ceiling. Help me with this one. I'm gonna kill him. Well, Naruto stood up slowly, stretching his back. I would say I would go out to get some fresh air and do a short exercise in the meantime, but the air here really isn't fresh. Why don't you watch the holovision? Blake blinked as she pointed over at the dresser and a small box that was on the top of it. Who knows, there might even be something on the news about the criminals you took note on. The whatovision? Naruto stared blankly at Blake, and her horror had only just begun. It sounds like you just mixed television with something from those sci-fi shows I used to watch all the time when I was a kid. What was it again? Yeah, that's it, a hologram. Blake stared at him openly, her eyes wide. Then she looked back up to the heavens. Help me. This is basic technology. Ow. Blake rubbed her temples, having stepped outside as she left Naruto to take a shower. Slipping on her vest and leggings, sitting on the rooftop of the hotel, staring longingly at the moon. How does he not know anything about the basics of modern technology? As Blake watched the moon, noticing the full moon cycle had ended and tonight was the first night as it was shifting to its broken cycle, a few fragments becoming visible on the right-handed side as it slid behind the clouds. Blake exhaled deeply. Even with the normally calm sight of the moon, she was disturbed. How could he be so clueless? Didn't know anything about what he should have known. Blake would have had him test for amnesia if they were at the hospital, but he seemed capable of recalling everything, so she didn't think that was it. Something else was the issue, and that bothered her. The moment she picked him up and began carrying him, he didn't recognize what her scroll was or how to use it. That should have tipped her off, but even the older generation knew how to operate a scroll. That was old tech, even if the new, more modern ones were constantly being updated. With the cross-continental transmit system built after the Great War, the first models of scrolls were developed, though they were primitive by today's standards and only updated over the years. So for someone not to at least know how to use one. I don't get it, Blake bit her lips. ears lowering as her eyes shimmered in the limited light, glinting and shining as she could see every aspect around her perfectly. He doesn't even know what I'm talking about when I bring up concepts like aura and semblances. They don't fall under the same rules when fighting, as his abilities seem too varied to be a semblance. Who are you and where are you from, Naruto? Blake asked no one in particular as she looked up out into the moon, the cloud-covered moon, praying for answers, but knowing she would not get a response. She didn't expect one. He didn't want to talk about it, and she understood. He was lost and didn't know where he was. What reason would he have to tell his secrets to a stranger? She wasn't telling him hers. It didn't feel fair to press him only when the subject arose, and they often did. Eventually something would have to give, and an answer would be given, but that would take time. And she supposed that's why he wasn't pushing her either. If he could feel people, what did that mean exactly? He seemed to know where she was when she was distressed or upset, and he found a way to uplift her in some way. So did that mean... Ah! Here you are, Naruto's voice chirped, most likely seeking her out and having found her using his said ability to feel people's presence. You doing okay? What in the world? Naruto? Blake's head bolted upright, hearing his tone shift, and she instantly knew something was wrong, and she could see his eyes flickering and a sense of fear on his expression. Something had terrified him. She could see that, but what could bring the usually so jovial, so uplifting personality of Naruto to such terror at a single glance? What was behind her? Feeling her spine tingling, she leapt to her feet, turning and looking towards what he was gazing at, only to see the clouds parting in the sky and the moon hovering over Remnant. The moon? Blake glanced back at Naruto, her eyes glistening in confusion as she faced him, worry-strewn as her lips furrowed. Naruto, you're frightening me. What's wrong? That is not the moon. Naruto shook his head, not believing what he saw. Seeing the shreds of a shattered moon, his body quivered. No, that can't be. What happened? That is not what the moon looked like. Not at all. It was never shattered or broken like this. Blake went rigid. Her ears stood on high alert, her hair standing on end. Her teeth clashed uncontrollably as her eyes vividly focused on the enigma that was known as Naruto, and a cold shiver went down her spine. It finally dawned on her why nothing about him made sense, or why he didn't know any of the basics that any child or remnant would know. It was because he wasn't from here. No, not from Vale. He wasn't from Mistral, or Atlas, or Vasio. Definitely not Menagerie, or any bandit tribe or people trying to live outside the system. He, by all purposes, was an alien from another world, and he was standing before her, confused and unsure how he arrived here. Blake didn't have an answer either. She simply smelled him and found him near death, like something was pulling her towards him and had been pulling her to stay at his side to help him adjust. This can't be, Naruto suddenly, and much to Blake's surprise, burst into golden light and flew up into the sky. Her eyes couldn't believe what she had saw as the wind whipped around her, barely able to stand on her feet. Her eyes went wide, And for a second, she could only track Naruto due to the golden light wrapping around his body. In an instant, he burst towards the moon. This wasn't like he had jumped earlier to take out the Alpha Nevermore. No, he didn't even move a muscle in his legs. Naruto was flying. He had the power of flight. And he was flying straight to the moon? Naruto! This couldn't be real. This had to be fake. An illusion. Yes, that's what this was. It had to be. It had to be some elaborate illusion. Did Sasuke Susanoo fail? And was everyone caught in Madara's infinite Tsukiyomi? Was all of this just some ploy by the Uchiha to keep Naruto trapped within the illusion? Make him believe that he was under his thumb? Naruto didn't understand, but he knew he had to get to the moon. If he did, he could see the reflection. He still had these powers. While he might not have the Rinnegan that allowed Sasuke to reflect genjutsu, he still had a small amount of chakra from the rest of the 9, although he was unsure why. Naruto swore he had spent it in his fight against Sasuke, but if this was illusion, that fight never had happened. So if he had this power, he could do something with it. Find a way to break out the illusion. It was getting tight on his lungs. He had long since left the atmosphere, and he could see the shattered remains of the moon getting closer and closer. He didn't think about it, but could he survive here? He wasn't struggling as hard as he thought, but the weight around him was a little uncomfortable. That glow, was it just the sun's shine? He couldn't feel anything radiating from the shattered moon. There was definitely a presence. Something powerful had been here at one time, but it was long gone. Its trail had gone cold, but there was no other trace of anything. No remnants of chakra, natural energy. Nothing. No. There was no reflection? No illusion? No, that couldn't be. No! This had to be an illusion. There was no way this could be real. He couldn't be somewhere else. Where was he? Why was he here? What happened to Sasuke? What happened to him? Tear stains dripped from Naruto's eyes as he gripped his temples. This was reality, not an illusion. He was here now, wherever here was. And that is all for now. Not sorry for leaving it on a cliffhanger. It's what I do. Gotta keep you coming back, am I right? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you made it this far. Hit that bell to get a notification and follow along when I update. There should also be a video on the screen. If you like this story so far, you might like one of these other videos. Until next time, my friends, stay safe out there. Peace.